Good evening, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the Al Ihsan Islamic Center. As you are all undoubtedly aware, tonight's program centers around career exploration. We are honored to be joined by a vast array of professionals and practitioners spanning from a diverse range of industries as broad as healthcare and tech, education, academics, faith, nonprofit, and government. Beyond the technical expertise that our panelists carry, what truly makes tonight special is that it's a night of connection, an opportunity to network, develop new professional bonds, share resources, and be in community with one another, inshallah. I encourage you all to fully engage with this space, to introduce yourself to the attendees next to you, and to forge new connections. Inshallah, to kick off this event, we'll hear a few words from our Executive Director, Sheikh Ahmed Anshour.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Dear brothers and sisters, respected guests, our youth and our honored professionals, welcome to Al Ihsan Islamic Center. We have a career exploration night tonight. We are truly grateful you have chosen to spend this evening with us. Tonight is about much more than picking a job or a major. It's about discovering how much talent Allah has given us can be a path to service and worship. We can turn all our professions into worship. Allah tells us and say, work, for Allah will see your deeds, and so will His messenger and the believers. That is Surah Tawbah. Our careers can be part of our worship if our intentions are sincere. If we serve people with ihsan, excellence and integrity, the Prophet, peace be upon him, taught us that Allah loves that when any one of us does a job, he does it with excellence. That's reported by Al-Bayhaqi. This is a reminder, whatever field you pursue, make your intention noble, seek beneficial knowledge, keep your characters strong. To our youth, your time and guidance are a form of a sadaqah. To our youth, ask and explore. Be curious tonight. Benefit from the journey in this room. To our parents and mentors, thank you for nurturing dreams with patience and dua. To our panelists, your time and guidance are a form of sadaqah jariyah, a lasting charity that may inspire choices for years to come. As we begin, let's renew our intention, seek what is halal and pleasing to Allah. And Allah guide our steps, open doors for beneficial knowledge, and make our youth leaders who uplift their families, communities, and societies. Lastly, I would like to thank all the efforts that have been spearheaded by our youth leaders here at Al Ihsan Islamic Center. There's a talented team of Al Ihsan that are organized this event tonight. And I am just telling them and saying in front of everybody, thank you and jazakumullahu khair. Assalamu alaikum.
The first panel, inshallah, that we'll be having this evening is our engineering and technology panel, inshallah. This panel will be moderated by Mohammed Mahmoud. Mohammed Mahmoud is a test engineer at Collins Aerospace in Burnsville, testing and inspecting air data centers and flight devices. Mohammed holds a bachelor's degree in aviation aviation management with professional flight, master's degree in aviation. He also holds an MBA. On this panel, inshallah, we'll have Khalid Diria, Mohammed Noor, Abdirazaq Abdikhadir, and it'll be moderated by Mohammed Mahmoud. So please join me, everyone, in welcoming our panelists and moderator, inshallah.
My name is Mohammed Mahmoud. As the introduction was given, I am truly humbled today to come up and speak to a few of my inspiring people that I've been watching in the state of Minnesota. I am from Columbus, Ohio. I do hold a bachelor's degree in aviation management and operations, and I did work with the airlines for a little bit. before switching gears into aerospace and deciding to study the mechanical parts of the airplane. With that, I was fortunate enough to get a master's degree in aviation engineering. And as soon as I was done this past December, I was humble enough to receive an offer from a company that's located here in Burnsville, Minnesota, as a test engineer, testing and verifying flight sensing devices, inshallah ta'ala. With that being said, I wanted to first go ahead and thank the Masjid leadership and the team for helping us try to come here and inspire the next generation of our young students, inshallah ta'ala. With that being said, I will be your moderator for today's panel in engineering and technology, inshallah ta'ala. I will be asking a set of questions here to our respected panelists. Inshallah, quickly go ahead and introduce yourselves. And with the first question being, what inspired you to become an engineer?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Muhammad Noor. I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Minnesota. But before that, I got my associates from Normandale Community College. Graduated back in fall of 2021. I now am a medtech engineer, so work in medical devices, which is a big industry here in Minnesota. Been doing that for about 4.5 years, and I have specialties in catheter development as well as neuromodulation.
Jazakumullah khair for the team for getting this all set up. Everyone involved. This is a beautiful event, so fortunate to be here and be around such talented people. So Jazakumullah khair. My name is Khalid Diria. I currently work as a senior analyst programmer at Mayo Clinic in Rochester. I have worked there for about 8 years now. I have been specializing in the realm of clinical care patient apps, predominantly working in cloud engineering, AI innovation, research, and ensuring that patients in the ICU have real-time monitoring available to them. If you're ever in the ICU, you might notice that there is data being presented on the screen. That data is then sent to Epic, and then that data is then analyzed by teams at Mayo Clinic to create applications. So I am part of one of those teams. I have a master's of science in cybersecurity and information assurance, and a bachelor's of science in information technology. And I also teach online. I like education. I like sharing what I do. It's very important for us as the Ummah to share our experiences, our journeys, especially with people who are maybe down the same path as you. So I teach online cybersecurity and IT foundations, helping career changers, new grads, and students earn certificates and break into the field. And continuing studying, no matter how old you are, where you are, continue your education. Do not forget where you came from, the people you came from, people who helped you get to where you are. So I'm studying agentic AI, some additional security certificates like the CISSP, and architect certificates from Google Cloud right now as my continued education. If you ever want to reach out to me for additional comments or want to connect, if you enter Khalid.tools on any web browser, you can find me and get in contact with me, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.
My name is Abdulrazak Abdulkhadir, and I graduated from North Dakota State University with industrial engineering and management, and I did a thesis in engineering leadership. So what inspired me to do engineering? So I asked myself, what kind of person must I become to attract all that I want in my life and the people and the opportunities I want to achieve, all the goals I have in my that I have set for myself. And then so once I asked myself that question, and then I realized engineering was the best fit and the most challenging to achieve those goals. And then the thing that inspires folks is two things. You either get inspired by somebody or desperation. Like let's say you're an immigrant and then they tell you, okay, you only have multiple options. Either go in STEM, become an engineer, doctor, or lawyer. So to conclude, currently I'm industrial engineer working at Evergreen Innovation as a personal production supervisor and personal care contract manufacturer. And I want to share this quote that inspired me as well. It goes like, "What you become is what you can achieve, and what you achieve helps you to become. The more you achieve is the more you become, and who knows which one affects the other."
MashaAllah, that's a very broad answer, but inshallah we're gonna dive deeper as we go on with the program. Engineering, as you know, is about a lot of teamwork, a lot of verification, a lot of testing. For example, in my role, what I do is I do the testing. My company I work for, they manufacture. This is a manufacturing company. Once the part gets built, I get it, I test it through multiple tests. Once I run it, I pass it to a quality engineer. There is a manufacturing engineer that's involved. All those people have to sign it off before it gets shipped off to the customer or whoever the customer is. So this question is, how important is teamwork or having effective communication in engineering?
Teamwork is everything in the industry I'm in. Medical devices is a very regulated industry, so things take very slow just by nature because you have to have everything approved by the FDA, especially in the devices that I've been working in recently. And neuromodulation is called a Class 3 device, so meaning that it's going to have the most scrutinized regulatory process, especially if you try and bring a new product into the market or even do an update. I'm currently what we call R&D, so that's like the first stage of the engineering cycle, life cycle I mean. So it goes from R&D, and then sometimes some companies have something called process development, and then operations, which is where, once it's approved, then they just deal with the day-to-day manufacturing and whatnot. So once you get everything like set to stone in terms of having the design inked out and you're ready to get things approved and submitted to the FDA, you have to have all of your engineering paperwork be approved by dozens of people. And teamwork is very important because some people like to take forever on signing things off and make things harder than it has to be. So you have to explain things to them very step by step at times. And it's pretty annoying, but it's something that you have to get good at if you want to keep being an engineer, especially in medical devices.
Yeah, teamwork is extremely important. I work in the software field, so similar to my brother here, lifecycle management is extremely important. We call it SDLC, software development lifecycle. You run through designing, you run through testing, you run through deployment, you run through maintaining, and various other phases. And these are heavily research-based, documentation-based. There are phases where you need to do implementations and testing and planning and might have to go through multiple groups, all teams beside yourself, and be able to effectively communicate exactly what it is you're trying to build and the business value that it serves and all those things. So engineering isn't just about building, it's definitely about collaboration, working together, and ensuring that you guys build a viable product or service that actually solves a real world problem. Not everyone understands what you're doing. I'm sure many of us who maybe have been discussed with a business person or someone in the business sector, and maybe you might question the work you're doing or your team is doing. This is exactly when effective communication is important in the field, because engineers, they know a lot of technical things. However, the world doesn't work in that way. Decisions don't get made in that way. It gets made via business decisions. So teamwork is important. In my field, it usually revolves around the life cycle management that they're going over. So, thank you.
Teamwork and communication is vital for you to succeed as an engineer, and not just as an engineer, but in anything that you do in life. Working as an engineer, you have multiple competing priorities. Let's say you have to meet production goals, safety, and quality. If you try to do all that by yourself, you're destined to fail. So getting the entire team together is going to help you become a better engineer. And one thing that I like to tell any person that's interested in this field is the best gift that you can give to yourself and any other person that you care about or your company is the gift of self-development and investing in yourself, becoming wiser, becoming more attractive to the marketplace, and just working on your soft skills as well.
Thank you very much. Moving on, in engineering, there's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of technical aspects of the work that's involved, hands-on, a lot of mathematical equations, if what or not. For example, in aerospace, there's a lot of and formulas that are involved, designing engines, from designing engines to making them work and things like that, and what's not. So what are some challenges that you guys have faced early on in your careers, if any, and how did you overcome it?
A big challenge I had my first couple years was communication. So, when you're in school, you want to be able to be someone who try to get a good grade, be on your own, try to make sure that, you strive to get that A by the end of the class and pass your exams and whatnot. So when I was in school, I used to do a lot of that by myself. But in the real world, it's like, you're not really doing calculus and like physics equations when you get out of school. Like a lot of that's already been solved for you. So it's more about just iterating on the next big thing, I guess. So I've had a lot of issues where, like, for example, I would have this design that I need to complete, but I would take 2 weeks when it could have been done like in a couple of days if I were to collaborate with my team and let them know step by step what I was doing. And then as a result, things had to be redone and it takes much longer. And then I'm holding up everyone else's work because my work is affecting theirs. And then as a result, I had like a couple of not so good job performances because of that. So I've learned over time that, even if you don't know what you're doing or if you think you know what you're doing, just communicate it. Because at the very least, you get credit for the fact that you communicated what you were doing, which is what they want you to tell what you're doing, especially if it's affecting what someone else is doing directly.
Yes, I agree. Communication is probably one of the biggest challenges of engineers. We don't study the part, soft skills, and our skills are super technical, and it's very hard to have an open conversation with someone about what we're doing, especially if they're not in the field. Even with some of the other engineers. Funny enough, we have morning meetings every day where we tell each other what we're doing. Maybe a scrum guide or a manager will be included in that call, or our product manager to help with product alignment. And as an engineer, it gets really tedious, re-explaining every day what I have done and what I'm doing today. That's definitely one of the challenges there, especially sometimes when you don't understand what purpose this solves. And after a couple of years, you come back and you understand that you have to make sure that what the work you guys are doing is aligned with your mission and goals. I work in healthcare. The major goal in healthcare is patient first. Patient is taking care of the patient, making sure things are provided for the patient. And the applications that we build are used to then solve those problems. An example would be during COVID, and this one of the challenges we ran into during COVID is a lot of people, unfortunately, got sick and they went to the hospital, and they were in those hospitals for a long time. You don't have enough nurses, enough clinicians to take care of all those people. You might have one doctor per floor. So what happens? You need a challenge or you need something to solve that problem. So my team and my unit came up with was a patient monitoring tool called the Cube Multi-Patient Viewer, and it lets a clinician, physician, maybe a CRNA, view a bunch of vitals in a bunch of rooms and flag if someone is heart's going up, their blood pressure is high, that they're in need of assistance or help, maybe without that person actually calling someone, right? So it's very important that we are proactively creating solutions, but first, that the challenges that come into that is building the software, getting it approved, finding the budget, and effectively communicating it in the process, and then training everyone, right? Maybe you have 3 engineers or 4 engineers in the team that actually understand what's being built. So who does the training? Well, you do. There's no one else. There's no super senior manager who's going to come and do it for you. The manager's going to do your job. Manager just helps you with alignments. So it's important that you understand your work, heavily documented, be very detailed oriented, and believe in Allah at the end of the day.
So for me, the biggest challenge was time management. Work-life balance in some companies goes out the window. So in the beginning of my career, I was a facility operations manager for a Fortune 500 company, Frito-Lay. And what I realized is some of the things that I went for cost me too much. So the price was too big to pay. It was sacrificing personal and family time. And then so one thing that you always have to consider, regardless of what industry you're in, is be aware of the person that you become in pursuit of what you want. And as long as you always prioritize your family and Allah first, you'll be all set.
Jazakallah khairan. We're going to get to that part. That is going to be our next question. We all come from households of faith, deeply guided in Islamic roots and religious teachings, whether it's learning the Quran or hadith or the religion at a very early upbringing. Once you step foot into corporate culture or, for example, universities, you experience a whole lot of different universe. So how much of your Islamic upbringing and education, how has it affected your performance and abilities in the corporate role?
I haven't seen much of an effect personally. I think one thing that I've done pretty well is be pretty honest and upfront with what I'm doing. So for example, if I'm fasting, I let people know I'm fasting so that if they're trying to invite me out to lunch or do a company event, I'm letting them know, I'm not in a position to do so if it's related to food. When it comes to, Salah, I always pray Salah on time. I usually, alhamdulillah, I've been pretty blessed that I've been able to work in places where it's pretty close to a masjid. So I always go out there during lunchtime to do that. And then I think the first company I worked at was here, like purely Minnesota based. So a lot of people I worked with, they already were familiar with, Islam to an extent, and whatever they weren't familiar with, I was able to help them understand it. And then I actually currently work for an Australian based company. So, they are not as familiar. Just have to show them, tell them things and whatnot. So I think so far it's been pretty good. Just having good confidence that you get from being a Muslim. It grounds you in ways that I think if I wasn't, I would have been a bit more nervous in a lot of things.
So Islamic education is extremely important, especially during your youth and you're growing up, because when you get into the corporate world, it is very different. These people do not believe in Allah, they do not believe in Islam, maybe they know nothing about Islam, and so they'll tell you to come to something called happy hour, Who's heard of happy hour? Yeah. Happy hour is when they go and they drink alcohol. They go to a bar together and they start drinking alcohol and they conversate. So it's their way of getting together, right? So a lot of them, they don't understand your religion and what you can and cannot do. So it's your prerogative to educate them, to tell them who you are, who a Muslim is, what the rulings are, what's halal and haram. And then also being very upfront about when time is salah, what time you're supposed to pray salah. Adhan people, they like to go to lunch at 12, right on the dot. Maybe they start work at 8, second noon hits, it's lunchtime, right? Then they're gone for an hour and they come back. Dhuhr is around 1 now, right? And that means if lunch is at 12 and you're supposed to start work again at 1, when are you going to pray salah? So you have to be very clear to them what you're leaving for, where you're going. When I started my career, I had to educate my boss a lot about what the masajid is, what do you do in the masajid. And he was just curious. He was an honest man. He just wanted to know. He wasn't stopping me from my religious freedom. However, letting him know what all these things are and why it's important is extremely is good. And then also having your coworkers are people. Have honest conversations about them. About their faith, what they believe, who they are, where they come from, and that creates a more positive work environment for yourself. You don't have to sit here and tell people, they tell you, oh, I went to this bar or I went to this club or something crazy, that's their conversation. They can remember you're in the room and they can speak to you properly, talk about events that are relevant to you, and that way the workplace is a lot better for you. So that's just some learning I've done. Pray your salah on time. You can bring your kitab with you to work and read your kitab in your cubicle wherever you are, and they should understand that's your prerogative. Your lunch break is different from the noon time frame, and communicate that as well, and educate them. Talk with them, share with them. They're human beings. They're Allah's creation, just like you and I, right? So, jazakumullah khair.
So my Islamic values and upbringing, it gave me a sense of identity. And in the corporate world, the higher that you want to climb the ladder, the more you will realize that you need leadership, right? So in Islam, the greatest leader to have ever lived is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So him being an inspiration to me and seeing why he was the greatest leader, like in terms right now, I've been in management roles for over a decade, and one thing that Islam has installed in me is like trying to memorize Quran, going to Hifd school. It helps you with, when you go to engineering school, it helps you with, you already have practiced this, this act of recall, spaced repetition to try to memorize the Quran. And then so now engineering technically or any other field should be very smooth and easy because you're already practicing this at a very young age, right? So that discipline, one thing is like success is just a few simple disciplines practice every day, whereas the people that are not doing so good is they're continually repeating small minor mistakes and they're repeating those mistakes.
For my case, I was fortunate enough to work for a company that supports healthy work-life balance. For example, Fridays, I don't have to tell nobody. I work by Dar es Salaam, so 6 minutes away, clock out, just go to Salat, come back, and then just resume work. I started for the company during Ramadan, and they didn't know what Ramadan was. So the first day, the company actually pays for your lunch. So the boss came, the manager, and my supervisor. They all came. They were all excited. They introduced themselves. They were like, "Do you want to join us for lunch?" And then I had to educate them. slow by slow. And now they actually respect me. They love what I do. They just think that it's really cool. But with that being said, I think it starts from the early household. My parents, they did a great job of, trying to connect me to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from an early age on. They taught me how much of a valuable the deen is. They've made me love my name. So one advice they would always used to tell me was, "Maga'aga waliga hawasakhen," your name is Muhammad. So always live the best of your peers. And Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, that has been one of the greatest advices I've received from anyone thus far. So one of the reasons why I mention this is, especially we have a lot of parents in the audience, listen to your kids as they get older, because they're the ones that are gonna be walking on those shoes later on. So let them have, choices, options, while still being loving and rejoicing to them. Which brings me to my next question. When choosing college majors, I think that is the most exciting times that a student or a young person can have, excited, I'm doing college exploration. What major should I choose? A lot of the students, they go into a major due to either their friends is in it, or they just were forced by their parents, right? For example, I know a father, he has 10 boys. All his 10 sons are engineers, different types of engineers. That's amazing, that's good. But at the same time, I feel like having a choice is really important, right? Because every kid, cunug walbo, maskaxdiisa way kala duwan yihiin. Midaa ku dhaho Quraanka rabo inaan xifdiyo, midaa ku dhahay I want to be this type of person. So how important is passion versus not having a passion when choosing college majors in terms of engineering?
This might be a little unpopular, but you shouldn't pick a major solely based off of passion. I think that's something that people make a big mistake with that. Oftentimes, I know a lot of people who are engineers because, they could enjoy it as a hobby rather than working on it. And then as a result, they've already put themselves in a position where it has to be a career, otherwise they have to start over and spend a significant amount of time starting over with things. Me personally, when I was picking mechanical engineering, I started backwards because in the masjid that I grew up at Irshad in Eden Prairie, there was Dawar Somali that was engineer, and she was in medical devices. And I remember just thinking about, I'm like, hey, it sounds pretty nice. She always talked about it in a very high regard. I was very proud of the fact that, she was, a few years older than me, but she was, I think, the first successful person I knew that came out of college growing up in America as a Somali person in the community. So then I asked her, how'd you get there from just walk backwards? Like, here you are as a medical device engineer in Minnesota, how'd you get there? And she told me that she got her master's in biomedical engineering, and then she got her undergrad and bachelor's in mechanical engineering. So then from there I learned, hey, there's a difference between biomedical engineering and mechanical engineering, but they're both doing the same job. With the salary range and that Minnesota is a very big hub. I think it's like between Minnesota and California, like number 1, number 2 largest hub in America, which is the biggest hub in the world. So it makes sense if I want to stay in Minnesota. You gotta look at your surroundings, and then just be realistic from there. Keep things that are your hobbies, but don't turn your hobby into a job.
Yeah, passion is an interesting conversation to have, especially with someone, especially in the world we live in today. Not all passions are valued at the same salary level, right? Everyone gets a different slice of the pie. So we get a bigger slice. Some people get a smaller one, maybe a sliver, right? I agree with what the brother said. You should do market research, find what is most applicable to you, but don't make your passion everything. I fall into an interesting bucket. I started my interest in IT and technology when I was very young. When I was 11 years old, right? I didn't know I wanted to get into the field exactly, but I knew I liked computers. I knew I liked software, and I liked building things. And that eventually led me down to some route. When I was in high school, I was in robotics. When I was in middle school, I entered small competitions. High school, I spent a lot of time competing in regional and state and national business events. And eventually I did study IT, and then it ended up working out for me, alhamdulillah, right? But that's not the same story for everyone else. So what's important is, first and foremost, put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the end of the day, what is meant for you will come in this life, and what isn't, you will not see it, right? But have some passion on what you're doing. Don't make work miserable for yourself. Enjoy what you're doing. Be excited about it. Otherwise, you're gonna dread waking up. Maybe you wake up a little bit late. Your alarm clock, you hit snooze, right? Maybe I wake up later. You come to work late, and then that's when the downfall of your career starts to happen, little by little. It's not something dramatic, but overall, you'll start getting bothered by it. But I am very passionate about the work I do. I think it's useful work, not just the work I do at my employment, but also the work that I do with education, the work that I do on my own time, project work, home labs, designing my own thing, sharing with people. If I can find crowds and anyone to have a discussion with, I will talk to you for maybe 5 hours straight if you let me about a topic, right? So have some interest, but ultimately choose, do your research and come to the best conclusion for yourself and your family, inshallah.
Being passionate, it does help a lot with what you're doing. You have to, whatever endeavor that you're pursuing, you have to do it for yourself. You have to have that want and that desire, that regardless of how hard it becomes, right? How long should you keep trying until you figure a way through it, right, in achieving your goal? And one thing that I want to say is, it's good to be passionate, but you have to put in the hard work, right? If the door of opportunity comes knocking and you're standing right in front of it and you're not prepared, you're not ready, then that's a lost opportunity. So when the door of opportunity comes, you have to be ready for that to capitalize on the opportunity.
For me, I would have to disagree respectfully, because I think passion is the greatest thing that I think someone could dream of, right? Because simply, I believe that going back all the way to high school, I was always curious about, traveling and cars and, how things work and so forth and so on. So one question I always used to ask myself is, what do I want to end up doing after high school? And I knew that I loved traveling. So towards the end of my high school, I was like, if I'm doing something, it has to be something that I'm really passionate about, that can get me out of bed, excited in the morning, that when I look at myself in the mirror, it's like, I'm excited, I'm going to work, not something miserable. So I was like, that's how I discovered aviation and flights and things like that. So, and ever since then, I've been happy at what I was doing, because I believe that was my passion at the time, and that was the correct decision I made. Which brings me to my next question here. In our households, as I said earlier, we came from households that are faith-based. Abba is constantly giving you advice, right? In my case, my dad was an engineer, right? He graduated, he has an electrical engineering degree from Ohio State University. So that path on was actually early on for me. But Abba is giving you advice, Hoya is telling you do one thing, right? What is one advice that you got from someone that has changed the trajectory of your life or how you viewed life in general?
you talking about engineering or just in general?
Just in general, it can be engineering or just
Um, I would say no one specific, but just in general. I've had a lot of people that I grew up with not go to college, or they ended up dropping out. And at first, I didn't understand why. I used to think that maybe something was wrong with them. Just wonder why they're so confused with it, right? But you sit down and you listen to what they're, why they're doing it. A lot of them went into businesses, started very successful businesses on their own or with their family, and from there, that's where I was able to understand. Life is not as rigid as school tends to make it. Where it's like, hey, engineering is a great field. It's a great paying job. It's a great paying job, and that if you go all those 4 years is very hard. Me personally, I say that engineering is the hardest undergraduate degree you can get, right? So people tend to say, oh, medical school's hard, law school's hard. Medical school and law school becomes hard after you get your 4-year degree. But that first 4-year degree, that's engineering, I think, is the hardest, just my opinion, just from how I interact with other people. But then from there, you start to understand, like, it's not as black and white outside of school. You start realizing, hey, getting an internship is more important than your degree, because they hire you because of your experience, not because of your degree. Because everyone has a degree, not everyone has experience though. But you don't learn that until you start to realize that you're not getting a job right out of school. You have to wait a little bit because of your inexperience, or you get laid off. Okay. I've been laid out before, and we're in a recession right now. I mean, it's undisclosed, but I think we're in a recession right now. And one thing that has made me become more resilient as an engineer, but as an individual, is the fact that you have to understand how the economy works. You have to understand economic dynamics dictate everything. Aside of your own life, that's where the dean comes in, right? And I've become much more flexible in what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Like, for example, this job I'm in is pretty unique. I've had to travel to Australia recently to help them out with things and whatnot. And this is something that, like, when I got laid off, a lot of people that got laid off with me, they ended up going to the same exact kind of company that I got laid off from, which was a contract manufacturing company in catheters, because that's all they knew. And I decided to do something completely different, going to a startup in neuromodulation, which has electrical and mechanical components to it, and software and firmware as well. It's totally different what I'm doing right now, but I've had to learn on the job because, I learned from people I've seen, you have to get flexible with things. And that's, college won't teach you that. You gotta learn that, maybe you'll learn it while you're in college, but college itself won't teach you that.
So in my career, I've had various advisors, people who have helped mentor me, and overall, what I've gained from them in regards to their assistance and impact that they have given me is that yes, ultimately the academic fields like school, getting your bachelor's and master's, does not directly tie into careers or roles that you will try to achieve as an engineer. That requires a lot of outside work, requires you to be working on projects that you were never asked to work on in school, or do projects that you were, are unrelated to your actual maybe degree program. My father, he was an entrepreneur for most of my life. I watched him work late nights, 2, 3, 4, maybe the whole day. I see him maybe sleep 2 hours and then gets up and goes back to work. So that instilled an amazing work ethic into me, along with spending a lot of time with my siblings and being a part of their raising, and growing and nurturing them. This teaches you some important things that you don't necessarily learn that are relevant to your career. When life gets tough, what do? How do you act? Where does your mind go? And ultimately, when Allah tests you with a challenge, you'll get to see exactly who you are when you face those challenges. If they're career specific, like getting laid off, that's a challenge, and ultimately how you deal with it is the teller. Street smarts and book smarts are different. I think we are all aware of that, and the market definitely has a specific lingo, language, tone, verbiage. Corporate America, they speak differently than regular people on the street, and the way they communicate, and you can see some people who get a promotion, some people who don't, and there's things going on in the background that are involved with that. So may Allah make us all successful and make it easy for all of us to attain our goals. Jazakumullah khair.
For me, while I was in university, one of the greatest advice that I got is that motivation is a myth. Children need to be motivated to do their daily routines and discipline, whereas you, as an adult, regardless of how hard the day is, right, there's going to be easy and hard days. Regardless, you need to essentially go ahead and go get the work done, right? And then, like I said, success is daily disciplines repeated every single day. And majority of the folks that are in the grave, they're regretful because they continued repeating small mistakes over and over again. And then there's a hadith that says when the folks that repeat minor sins ends up becoming a major sin, right? So they're like, they know it's a sin, but like those minor sins lead to a great atrocity. So it's being mindful of the small things that lead to great disasters.
For my case, I think one person that has given me an advice that changed the trajectory of my career or how I just view things in general was my Duksi Ma'alin back in Columbus. His name was Sheikh Mukhtar, and Sheikh Mukhtar was someone that taught me the Quran from the beginning. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I kind of ended up under his wing, going through various types of leaderships in the masjid under him. He would constantly talk to me and motivate me about the benefits of education and how when someone becomes educated, how they start seeing things from different perspectives or different areas. So with under his guidance, alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, I was able to not only be strong in academics, but also the religious side. I was able to complete multiple kitabs, and alhamdulillah, that has changed the way I see corporate world or what this world means in general. It's just like someone that's passing by. Just you take whatever that's necessary that you need, and you move on to your next destination, which is hopefully Jannah, inshallah ta'ala. Which brings me to my final question, and then we're probably gonna open the floor up for one or two more questions from the audience, and then that would wrap up our session here. That question is, has your current career, has the way it turned out, I'm sure we're all, when we're in college, we have one picture, right? At the end of the tunnel, how our life looks like. For example, for me, get my bachelor's degree, get a pilot's license, end up in the airlines. Boom. That was all my goal. Life happened, COVID happened. I changed my mind within the blink of an eye, right? I ended up finding out I was far more specialized in leadership roles than just being up in the air, right? So the way your careers turned out versus the pictures that you guys had in college, what was the difference, and are you guys happy the way your life turned out right now?
No, it's not at all what I thought I was going to be in college. I came into college thinking that it was going to be, you know, maybe like a more smaller scale version of Tony Stark from Iron Man, you know, like, you know, be in the lab, be able to build things, especially because my first semester in engineering school, I had this class called Intro to Engineering Design at Normandale, where I built a robot, a can crushing robot. So that was pretty cool. It just got much more difficult and less hands-on from there, outside of doing clubs and whatnot. Going into the industry, you learn, like I said before, a lot of things have already been set in stone. So you're not doing like formulas, you're not doing calculus, you're not doing physics, you're not doing the things that you know, beat yourself over in while you're in school, which is a good thing, because that means that a lot of it's in the software. But you have to understand, you know, when software does not work, why does it not work? Because a lot of that is based off of what you learn in school. Real life is much more political. Corporate world is much more tedious in some ways. But I would say one thing that I'm really glad I did was in college, I learned, you know, like I said before, I learned about the economy and like how that works and like why we got to where we are today. Because it made made expectations for me, at least coming out of college, much more realistic and grounded. So like, for example, when I got laid off, I saw it coming, you know. It made me prepared by, you know, doing one of two things. One, understanding what the job market's going to be moving forward, and then which wouldn't have been very helpful for me because a lot of people that I got laid off with, they were able to bounce back pretty quickly because they already had a network of people that they had from over the years they worked with. So they just picked up the phone and said, "Hey, do you have a job available?" And they got a job, right? Things that were not available online. Me, I didn't have that network because I was getting laid off within less than 2 years coming out of school. So I had that would have taken time, which I didn't have. But I had two things going for me. One, I took off what I would say is primary requirements of like, you know, trying to enjoy the job and just be much more bare bone with the job and just think about it as a paycheck at the end of the day. And then the second thing I did was I started, you know, doing things outside of work, you know, like for example, you know, looking into businesses that I could start up, start investing in the stock market and understand how that works. And then from there, it made it so that when I ultimately got let go, you know, alhamdulillah, I was able to have a good amount of money in my pocket, but also be able to have more emotional control in terms of, you know, what to do for this next role and do interviews and whatnot, which, you know, I was able to like, you know, I was able to have a job lined up before I got laid off as a result because of, you know, how much work I put in and didn't really take things for granted.
Yes, I didn't know that I was going to be where I'm at today. You know, at the end of the day, I put the trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am exactly where I need to be. Right? Allah has just chosen that for me. You know, always putting your best foot forward. You know, I started off very young into the field, just working. I think I got my first job as an IT support analyst when I started college as a freshman. So I started early. But I didn't know I was going to be working for one of the largest hospitals in America, working with some of the top clinicians that exist in the world, working with some of the best teams, and just, you know, having that opportunity, right? First and foremost, that's one. Climbing the corporate ladder, well, I honestly say it's not that important. You have some of these people have an agenda, so they know each other, they have a network, they have things behind the glass. Maybe they go to those bars together and they have the happy hour, right? Ultimately, as a Muslim, try to do as much networking as you can. Meet any person you can, that you think is gonna help you reach your goals, whether they're inside your company or outside your company. Doing events like these, where you get to see other people who may not even be in the field, but be the next entrepreneurs, the next business leaders, etc. Right? Could be sitting in this room. So you never know where life is going to take you. Trust in Allah and believe in the last day, and ultimately you will be exactly where you need to be.
For me, the picture that I had while I was in university was completely different to what the industry is really. And for me, the biggest thing was that all the goals that I had for myself, some of them were not serving me. So anytime that I realized a goal is not serving me, I tear those goals and then I set new goals. Like when I was an engineer, I thought 60,000 a year was perfectly enough to make a livelihood. But with starting a family, realize you need to behold and see the possibilities and opportunities presented right in front of you, right? If a company is not serving you, don't be loyal to that company, right? Find something that will inspire you and help you to serve your community and your family in the best way possible.
The greatest thing about education and the greatest point when someone becomes educated, they become an asset. You're a moving asset. The company needs you. Even if they fire you, they cannot take away your degree. The only thing they can take away is the role that you have. But the skills that you have and the leadership skills that you bring that you take to your next job or your next role, that's yours. No one can take that away from you. And that's something that's only can be achieved through education and higher education. That was all the questions that we had for the engineering panel this evening. And now is the time to open the floor for one or two more questions, inshallah ta'ala, before we wrap it up. I have two hands. I have three. I'm going to go with Adair and then Siad and then the gentleman in the back, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair. Very, very inspiring panel. Good to see our engineers. Those of us who are the early generations, it's really rewarding to see the younger generation really stepping up and delivering the good work and continuing the message. So my question is, we hear a lot about doctors, educators, business, but not so much about engineering as a field. Somali engineers. So number one, do you have a network of support among yourselves, among Somalis? And of course, that's one. And two, how does your field come back to help uplift our community? Do you have discussions, plans? What's engineering applicable to where our community is today? We've been here 35 years, and we're still seems struggling in many ways. So, and I do feel that you have a big role in uplifting this community.
Yes, that is actually an excellent question. To answer the first part of your question, yes, there is an organization that is existing. It's called Somali Society of Engineers. They have a mentorship program which mentors high school age students, college, middle school students, and they have a mentorship program, and I'm actually the lead person for that specific mentorship role. So if the masjid has students that are interested in engineering or robotics in general, or like any types of softwares, we have chemical engineers, we have civil engineers that are a part of the organization that are Somalis. So one thing that Somalis are good at is they're good at visual learning. When they see someone that looks like them, they believe the sky is the limit for them. So that is, yes, we do have the organization. And what is the second part?
Think about giving back to the community, like how can you help uplift our community to the next level?
Similar to the brother Muhammad from Columbus, I have been previously, not anymore, collegiate membership chair for an organization called National Society of Black Engineers, NSBE. It's a nationwide, I want to say nonprofit, where they do, mentorship as well as organizing and networking for fostering more Black engineers in America. So I was part of the Twin Cities chapter for a couple of years, and I was specifically helping out the college students. And the University of Minnesota was the biggest one, and just by luck, like a lot of them are Somali. Most of them are computer science. So I was leading the mentorship program for that, and we were able to have a lot of mentors and mentees that were created from there, and telling students how to apply, how to go about things, teaching them how to make sure that they take advantage of the time in school that I didn't really have when I was in college myself. I think, though, to answer your second question, I think engineering, I would say more the software side of things, does a really directly a good job of being able to bring back to the community from an engineering standpoint, just because of there's a lot more Somalis that are in software engineers than like what I'm in, mechanical engineering, and also the operation cost, the startup cost is like, pretty light. All you have to do is just, pay for the software and, maybe marketing and whatnot. But in medical devices, for example, it has a much more higher startup cost. Like, for example, if you want to make a medical device, you're going to need at least $2 to $5 million just to get through, submissions and FDA approval and whatnot. That's not even like, being able to get into the market and actually make sales off that. So it's a high risk, kind of high reward business. So, in medical devices, the only thing I think Somalis can do right now is, continue to get more Somalis in the industry, so that we can have much more understanding of, how to actually break into the industry and make our own company, which I think is very feasible at some point. But for now, I think the most dynamic way for Somali engineers to give back is, through the software route, which I think my brother here can talk more about that.
The first question was, there's two questions here. What was the first one?
The first.
The second question.
Okay, we can go. Okay, I'm just making sure. Yeah. So when it comes to supporting the community, first things first. If you want to support your fellow brothers and sisters, first things first is to set up events like these. We need to have first a conversation. We need to start talking to each other first. I can't sit in my, gurigegi or the office and go between those two places and never sit down in a masjid or be in a facility. Like the brother said, there are societies, engineering societies that exist for black men and Somali people. There's also SNAPI, right? I don't know how active it is now.
For flight education or people that are generally interested about aviation or if they want to become a pilot or not, there is an organization that's called National Black Aerospace Professionals. They mentor or they have girls in aviation days. For example, the company that I work for, where they gather a bunch of middle school and high school girls and they just teach them about, parts of the airplanes, what are the principles of flight, and, kind of show them in terms of, visualizing them. So there is all these programs. It's just a matter of, connecting the dots, who's interested in what not and what so forth. So that's all. Now, Siad's question.
I would like to donate my time to these girls to ask questions.
Jazakallah khairan. That is much needed. Any questions from the sisters' side? Okay. I think the gentleman in the back had a question. We're going to close it up with him, inshallah ta'ala.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Kamal Nafiu. Once again, thanks for the inspirational speeches and then your sharing experience with us. My question is to the panelists. At what point in your careers, in your life, did you feel like you were actually achieving your goals, or you've achieved your goals? Is it probably when you got your degrees, or when you had your first job, or when you got your promotion? Why I'm asking this question is sometimes growing up as youth, you're trying to figure out what to do, it's not working. Maybe is it that we don't have that patience? So like the question is, at what point in life or in your careers do you feel like, hey, I'm getting there or I've gotten there? Thank you.
You know, most of us are Somali, right? So I would say one thing that I like about us is that we're pretty. We work to live. We don't live to work, right? So I like that because that means that we have a pretty good way to go from point A to point B, which is that, you know, for example, for me, I didn't really care about trying to like become like a CEO of a company and whatnot, like from the get-go. Therefore, you know, having to do things that are a bit burdensome compared to, you know, if I just did my job and made sure I understood that within my job I can, you know, learn and maximize things so I could take away from that and go back to what I said before, like, you know, start my own business, for example, and whatnot, you know, which I think we're really good at. I like that. I like the fact that Somalis are entrepreneurship driven. For me, my goals that I had, especially coming out of school, was just make a certain amount of money, use that money to make more money, and then from there, make myself available to, like, you know, be able to move around and be able to like get to another job and whatnot. And going back to what my brother said right here, it's like, don't be loyal to a company, you know? Like I can never see myself working like at a company for like decades on end. That's just not good. It's not good at all. And then from there, you know, that money allows you to make more money and start your own businesses and whatnot. And from there, that's a great way to get back to the community indirectly because of you're an engineer to begin with.
I think that due to timing,
Let's give brother a chance.
okay. Turn it off.
So to answer the doctor's question previously, for me, what I'm currently doing is any person that's interested in industrial engineering or engineering in general, like a lot of the engineers, if they come on board with me to give the opportunity for our community to job shadow, that will open eyes to a lot of folks to see what a day of the life of an engineer is, right? Because a lot of the folks nowadays don't get that opportunity. And then for me, to answer that brother's question, at what point did I realize that I achieved my goal is the moment that I realized that I'm not just successful in one company, that I have a record that speaks for itself, that regardless of what company it is, I can have a proven record to make something of myself to be successful in that company.
MashaAllah, Jazakumullah khairan. It has been an honor to come out and share a bit of what we do with the community. I hope that this was a eventful and very fruitful discussion for you guys as much as it was for us. And we thank once again the Idara of the Masjid and the leadership for making this possible. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.